We start with breaking news. The search for a suspect in a shooting as we take a live look over a cloudy and windy Mackinac City.
Northern Michigan's news leader.
Coleman hasn't had a grocery store in years. Now that's all changing. United Way and the Coleman Family Center recently partnered up to open the Coleman Family Market.
They should install a motion-activated light and set a timer for the inside light and get a security camera.
To this day, it amazes people, and it's a mystery to them.
When you first get to Goodhart, it's hard not to notice just how peaceful it is. It's likely what drew the Robeson family to this area, to escape the hustle and bustle of life in southeast Michigan.
Back in 1968, things were pretty simple, and it was a pretty sleepy little town with a little general store and a gas station.
But a horrifying discovery inside the Robeson family cottage would rock this quiet Lake Michigan town.
Unfortunately, Richard, his wife Shirley, their sons Richie, Gary, Randy, and Susan had all been killed. It was terrible. I mean, those bodies had been moved over the heat registers, so they were badly decomposed. It was a mess.
The entire family shot and killed. What followed was a 15-month investigation, according to Emmett County Sheriff Pete Wallen, one that eventually led investigators to one man.
The prime suspect in this was Mr. Robeson's business partner, Joe Scalero. Mr. Robeson had gotten a phone call from his secretary about money's missing from the account. And so I think Mr. Robeson, he had a conversation with Mr. Scalero, and I guess it wasn't very good. There was a lot of yelling and screaming.
There was some evidence found at the scene linking Scalero to the crime.
They did get shell casings from the scene, and they knew that Scalero had that .22 Armalite. And they went to the firing range where he used to shoot it, found 4 shell casings, and they exactly matched the shell casings at the scene.
Marty Link is the author of the book When Evil Came to Goodhart. She says there were other factors that pointed to Scalero.
One, he didn't have an alibi. Not only did he not have an alibi, he lied about his alibi. He said he was one place, and it turned out he was at that place on a different day. He had money troubles. He was an excellent marksman.
But even with what seemed like mounting evidence, prosecutors in Emmett County were reluctant to issue charges. Then L. Brooks Patterson, who was the Oakland County prosecutor at the time, took a look at the case.
He was going to issue charges on Scalero. When Scalero caught wind of this, he committed suicide. You know, he left notes that I'm not a liar, and I have embezzled, but I never killed anybody.
Well, I think initially Scalero was completely overconfident and just thought, well, I'm this mover and shaker from the Detroit area. I'm Mr. Sophisticated. I can completely hoodwink these bumpkins from up north.
The case remains open, and Sheriff Wallen says tips still come in, but none that have led to the breakthrough investigators hope for.
I'm very confident that Scalero did it. The only thing that, and probably you've heard it and other people have, did he do it by himself?
The tragedy is that it was just money. All that grisliness, all that suffering and all that death and an entire family annihilated was just over money.
For 9 and 10 News, I'm David Leiden.
There's a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And when COVID-19 hit, the necessity was to survive, whether it was your business, your city, your way of life. And what it forced people to do was invent creative ways to get by. And some of those, once the masks are gone and we're through this pandemic, are going to stick around because they showed things can be done better and more efficient. But we're not there yet.
It did force us to get a little creative.
If we were to redesign our system now, what is it that we know?
What have we learned? Did COVID-19 open our eyes to new ways of doing things that will be part of our post-COVID lives?
There were glimmerings and ideas, but yeah, there was never any kind of time to put those things together. The pandemic forced it. It became survival to figure these things out.
The food business became the survival business. Without dining rooms, restaurants and bars had to adapt. They took it outside.
We've always done carryout, but we've never tried to bring the carryout experience home.
Miles Anton of Trattoria Stella survived by pushing his meals into homes.
Kits that people could pick up and cook at home very easily with cooking instructions.
The slower traffic also allowed them to build a cocktails and wine to go program.
At this point, the systems are in place. It's just a matter of finding staff.
First it was stress and fear, and then kind of fun, like having to recreate your business and think outside the box.
Tina Schuett at Rarebird found that COVID uncovered possible growth. Relaxed laws in the city allowed for a big outdoor area and a tent.
It was always kind of clunky when those groups would come because it's such a large volume at once, and it would kind of scare away regular customers. So we're definitely going to be adding that back indefinitely, possibly instead of a tent, adding rooftop dining.
I think a lot of people are saying, hey, there's cooler, different ways to do things.
Including running a city. During the pandemic, Traverse City opened things up to draw people downtown.
I think things like closing Front Street to automobile traffic and opening it to pedestrians was something that was easier to do last year because it was really necessary.
People could walk freely from place to place, a drink in hand.
I don't know if that'll be back this year necessarily, but it's certainly proven that it's possible.
Prior to COVID's arrival in the United States, Munson Healthcare was working through a multi-year plan for telehealth.
Healthcare was already planning on going digital, but in 2019, Munson did not do a single virtual visit. They did more than 75,000 in 2020.
I think it's safe to say we moved a couple years ahead.
Just like in healthcare, schools immediately were forced to turn on technology.
You know, it was a real culture shock for a lot of people having to learn online.
There's a push now to get students back in the building, but not everyone will come back.
We know there will be an element of our student population that is interested in continuing on with online learning.
The groundwork is laid now for students to choose their mode, and teachers are adapting.
They could be teaching half of their day in a classroom and half of their day online, you know, to kids that aren't even in those four walls. You know, coming out on the other side of this, whatever that new normal is, I think has definitely pushed that forward to where technology is really going to become much more part of an instructional atmosphere.
The new norm for school and for life. In Traverse City, Eric Lloyd, 9 and 10 News.
When you're sitting on the sidelines of your kids' basketball game, celebrating with the volleyball team that just won a regional title, or at Friday Night Football, there's a good chance you'll see someone from our sports department right inside all the action.
You know, you can't beat it, the atmosphere, you know, the students, the band, the fans.
Covering every sport in every season.
We get to a lot of, you know, obviously there's the main ones, football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball. But then we get to things like, you know, the Osable River Canoe Marathon, the I-500 snowmobile race in the UP, the skiing.
But with all those sports across 100 plus schools.
I mean, that's the hard part is we try to get to every school, but there's just so many.
This three-man team schedule is as fast-paced as the games they cover.
I come up with like the weekly plans and produce Sports Overtime, produce all the shows, and then anchor. Joey anchors on the weekends, sports, and then he'll go out, he'll do the game of the week, and he'll cover sports. And then Tyler will go out and report for us and cover games and all of that, and he'll fill in anchoring whenever we need him.
With games and practices 7 days a week year-round, there's no such thing as a slow time of year, but nothing compares to football season.
Tonight I'm getting 3 games and then coming back and anchoring Sports Overtime with Matt.
Our Sports Overtime show highlights the top games across northern Michigan.
So you have the preparation, getting ready. We have the 6 p.m. show where we're live, and Joey's out doing game of the week stuff.
Check. We go live for our Sports Overtime pregame, and we, you know, preview the matchup, talk about, you know, what the aspects of the game are. Right. Tonight's game showcases 2 of the best teams in 8-man football.
And we have like a little bit of a break where the games are starting at 7.
And on the move we go again.
Then it's their game time.
I'm tweeting and I'm, grabbing the roster and checking, okay, that first tweet's out.